Have you ever imagined becoming a famous historical figure? Tonight, you will become Elizabeth. Not yet the Virgin Queen. Not yet Gloriana, just Elizabeth. Daughter of a king and a condemned woman. A girl in a tower. A name spoken in whispers. So, lie down, let the world slip away. Let the walls of your room dissolve gently into cold Tudor stone. Listen, and you will begin to remember. You were born in September, under skies that would have seemed too quiet for what came next. Your mother, Anne Boleyn, smiled for the crowds, but slept with one eye open. She had given the king a daughter, but not the son he craved. You were wrapped in fine linen and held before courtiers who masked disappointment with rehearsed joy. The cradle was gilded, but the lullabies were brittle. You do not remember the day your mother was taken to the tower, but your bones do. The stone of the place would come to know you again. They say the blade was swift. They say your father wore white on the day of her death. He was a king. He had more wives to find, and you became the child of silence. Your title, princess, vanished like breath on cold glass. You became Lady Elizabeth, neither princess nor nothing. A royal without favor, a girl with red gold hair and a mother no one dared mention. You were sent to live away from court, a different place each season. Large, echoing estates with quiet corridors and too many watchful eyes. But you had books, and you had questions. Always the questions. What does it mean to be born unwanted? What does it mean to carry your mother's shadow and your father's name? You learned to read Latin before you could ride a horse. Your tutors marveled. You remembered everything. Your penmanship was elegant, even at 6. You knew the Greek myths better than your own family tree. Perhaps that was safer. The nurses whispered that you spoke too carefully for a child, that you never truly laughed, only smiled in half measures. But the pages never lied to you. The ink never shifted. Catherine Parr entered your world like a warm fire in a winter hall. She was your stepmother, yes, but more than that, she saw you. She let you write her letters in Latin. She gave you books with margins wide enough for notes. She brushed your hair herself, but no joy lasts long under Tudor roofs. When King Henry died, Catherine married again too quickly, the court murmured. You lived with her, you admired her. Husband, Thomas Seymour, a man with too much charm and too little restraint. He crept into your chambers early, whispered flattery that felt like knives in silk. You were 13, and you learned, once more, how to smile without giving anything away. When Catherine died, everything turned again. You were questioned, watched, almost accused, and you survived. Already, your life had been a series of locked doors and shifting faces, but you had learned something precious: to speak softly and listen harder, to bend but never break, to retreat and wait for the right moment. It was lonely, but it kept you breathing, and sometimes, in the dead of night, you whispered your mother's name, Anne, not as a curse or a prayer, but as a thread you tied to your own survival. A ghost walking beside you, silent like you. Now, as you drift toward sleep, let her walk beside you again. Let the halls of your childhood blur into warm candlelight. Let the wind in the trees outside sound like gentle Latin verses. You are Elizabeth. You are not broken. You are beginning. You do not remember the sound of your mother's voice, but you remember silence and how heavy it can be. Silence at meal times, silence in letters, silence when the name Boleyn passed someone's lips and then was swallowed again. You learned early that words could be as dangerous as daggers, and sometimes not speaking was the only shield left. The years turned, slowly, then faster. Your father, Henry, married Agenand again. Queens came and went, their faces changing like seasons, some kind, some cold, some smiling as they looked at you, and some who barely looked at all. You stood by as a child, of yesterday's scandal, legitimate in blood, illegitimate by decree. It was a strange place to be, always too royal to ignore, never royal enough to be safe, and yet you listened, you learned. Not just Latin, but eyes, not just Greek, but tones of voice. You studied faces like you studied texts, looking for what wasn't written. By the time you were 7, you could translate Cicero and hold a courtier's gaze without blinking. By 10, you had learned to dance, to bow, to speak French and Italian, and most importantly, to wait. It was in the waiting that you came to understand grief. First, the quiet sickness of Queen Jane Seymour. You watched the court grow solemn and soft-spoken. She gave your father the son he always wanted, Deadwood, and then, as quickly as she rose, she was gone. A queen's death meant black gowns and whispers, but for you, it meant something deeper. A reminder that even those closest to the king could vanish without warning. And then there was Catherine Howard, young, beautiful, and reckless. You saw how the court adored her, how even your father softened in her presence, but secrets clung to her like perfume, and soon the scent turned to scandal. She was accused, she was imprisoned, she was executed, and you watched the processions. You heard the bells toll. You read the trembling script on royal proclamations. Each fall of the axe echoed a lesson. Power is temporary. Love is dangerous. Truth is best left unspoken. You had few companions your age, but you did have books, and mirrors, and candlelight. At night, you wrote translations in your neat, slanted hand. You read philosophy and fables and scripture, underlining sentences that stayed in your mind like prayers. You asked yourself, if a lion could speak, would anyone understand it? If a woman ruled, would anyone obey? These were quiet questions, dreamy even, but you asked them all the same. Your younger half-brother Edward was being raised as a king. You were not. You were being raised as something else. You didn't yet know what. Catherine Parr, your final stepmother, was the one who offered light. She brought warmth back to the palace. Books, music, discourse. She sat with you in the library and asked about your thoughts on Seneca. She encouraged. Your writing smiled when you challenged your tutors. She told you that your mind was your castle and no one could take it from you. And when your father died, and Edward became king at 9 years old, she gathered you into her household. You were 14. Your world had changed again. With Catherine, you felt seen. She valued your intellect, your wit, your grace. But her new husband, Thomas Seymour Redwood's uncle, was another matter. He was charming, yes, handsome, but his charm wore sharp edges. He would come to your room too early, when the maids were not yet dressed. He laughed too easily, touched too freely. He said things that sounded like compliments, but curled in your stomach like spoiled milk. At first you smiled, because smiling was what you had been taught to do. But Catherine began to notice. She saw your quiet shrinking, the way you avoided rooms he had just left, and yet she defended him. Or perhaps she didn't want to believe what she already knew. When she died childbirth, again you felt the ache of safety lost. She had been your harbor, and now the storm had returned. Thomas Seymour grew bolder. He schemed, he plotted, he eyed the throne and you. But you had learned by now. You stayed silent, you stayed still. And when they came to question you about letters, about glances, about intentions, you met them with poise. You spoke softly, but not too softly. You answered questions with questions. You gave just enough, never too much. You survived the inquiry. They could not pin treason on a girl who never stepped out of line. You learned again, the world would not protect you, but your mind might. And so, in your rooms at Hatfield, you read more. You memorized state papers. You debated theology. You wrote notes in 3 languages. You knew the world did not want you to rule. And yet, something in you whispered that you might. One day, not because you were destined, not because you were chosen, but because you had learned how to listen in silence, how to walk among knives, how to hold your breath longer than anyone else, and maybe, just maybe, the future could belong to someone like you. Now, the candle burns lower. The room is still. The air smells of vellum and dust, and the pages of your books flutter in a breeze only dreams can feel. Let your breath slow, let the memories settle. You are Elizabeth. You are not a princess, not yet a queen, but you are awake and you are waiting. The air always felt colder after your father died, not because the wind changed, but because the throne did. Edward was king now, a boy with soft hands and a crown too large for his temples. Your brother, your blood, but not your safety. You had no place at his courtenay on the edge of it. You were tolerated, not cherished, watched, not welcomed. Still, you bowed and curtsied, and said the right things at the right times. Once, you were Princess Elizabeth, but then came a scroll, unrolled with solemn ceremony, declaring you something else, illegitimate, unfit for the line of succession, unworthy of the name you bore. The words were written in fine ink, the seal was red, but what hurt most was how quickly people accepted it. How easily your title vanished from their lips. It was not the first time a girl became invisible, but you did not disappear. No, you learned to exist between the lines. You read every decree, every letter, every shift in the court's wind. You learned what it meant to live in a shadow and yet cast one of your own. Lady Elizabeth, a name too plain, too small, and yet you carried it with grace. Catherine Parr's household became your last island of comfort, but even that did not last. When Catherine died, you were sent away again. Rooms that once echoed with music were now locked. Books were packed. Letters halted. The scandal of Thomas Seymour clung to you like smoke. You had survived, yes, but suspicion leaves its own stains. You returned to Hatfield, an estate you knew too well, and there you waited. You rose early before the sun and studied, not just history or languages, but law, diplomacy, politics. You devoured texts on kingship, not because you thought you would rule, but because knowledge made the silence bearable. There were mornings when the frost covered the grass like glass. You walked the gardens alone, your breath visible in the air. Each step a quiet prayer. Be still, be watchful, be safe sometimes. Ambassadors visited, men with cloaks and secrets, bearing letters sealed in wax. They bowed to you, smiled politely, but always asked the same question with different words. What does Elizabeth want? And you always answered the same way. To serve her brother, to read, to learn. You told them what they wanted to hear, because the truth was too dangerous. You did not want marriage, not to the French prince, nor the German cousin, nor the English noble. You wanted space, time. You wanted to breathe without someone measuring your value by the width of your hips or the softness of your smile. You knew what queens were meant to be: wives first, mothers second, rulers only if men failed. You had no desire to become someone's pawn, and yet, despite all your caution, the danger returned. It came wrapped in roses. Lady Jane Grey, a name whispered like a sigh. A girl barely older than you, declared queen by men who feared what came next. And then Mary, your sister, half-sister, whole fury. She swept into power like a firestorm, and Jane's reign ended with a sword. You watched it unfold from Hatfield. One morning, you were irrelevant. The next, you were a threat. Mary knew how close you stood to the throne. She knew what the people whispered, how they loved you, how they feared her. So she summoned you. You rode to court under a grey sky, your breath catching at the sight of the tower. Its stones too familiar, its shadows too deep. Mary greeted you with cold eyes. She wore a crown, but her heart burned with old wounds. She questioned you. She smiled without warmth. And behind every word was the same silent threat. One misstep, and you will join the others. You smiled back, spoke carefully, offered loyalty with your lips while keeping your thoughts buried deep. But it wasn't enough. One morning you were awoken before dawn. The guards were polite. They said the Queen requested your presence. They took you to the tower, the same tower where your mother had died, where you had learned as a child that stone can remember pain. They put you in a chamber, high above the Thames. The windows were narrow, the door heavy. The silenced Attal, you watched the river flow beneath you, and wondered if anyone truly believed you were innocent. They accused you of plotting, of rebellion. Your name was found in letters, your signature misused. You denied it, but denials are not protection. You waited for days, weeks. Each morning you wondered if this was the day the axe would fall. But at DIDN, single quotes, the charges faded. The winds shifted. Mary grew more preoccupied with her Spanish husband, with her own crumbling health, and one spring morning, without ceremony, you were released. You stepped from the tower gate and felt the sunlight on your face, as if for the first time you did not smile. Not yet, but you were free, and freedom, you learned, was not safety. It was simply breath. At Hatfield once more, you resumed your studies. Older now, sharper, quieter. You had lost titles, homes, friends, but you had never lost yourself. You were still Elizabeth, still watching, still waiting, and deep within, a truth took root. If the crown ever came to you, you would never let it go now. In this stillness, let your breath settle. Let the tower fade into mist. Let the pages of your life turn with the wind. You are Elizabeth, not quite a queen, but no longer a pawn. Only the night stands between you and history. The tower never truly leaves you. Even after its walls are behind you, its silence remains. A silence that hums beneath every conversation, that echoes in every hallway. A silence that teaches you what no tutor ever could, that words are weapons, and trust is always a gamble. You return to Hatfield with that silence stitched into your bones, not in fear, no, in awareness. A stillness within you now, sharp as a blade in its sheath. You move carefully, speak sparingly. Your letters are precise, measured. Even your laughter has corners. But make no mistake, you are not afraid. You are awake. Your sister, Mary, rules from London. The court flickers like a candle in the wind-uncertain tents. The people grow restless. The air thick with smoke and whispers. Her marriage to Philip of Spain has not brought joy, only dread. And her womb, so long hoped to bear an heir, remains empty. This, more than anything, makes you dangerous. You are young, unmarried, Tudor-blooded, Protestant you are. The next, they begin to write to Eurobles, exiles, dreamers with trembling hands. They call you the hope of England. They beg for your blessing, your sign, your signal. You do not answer. You do not burn the letters either. Instead, you lock them away beneath floorboards. Between the pages of books, in secret drawers no one touches. You do not want rebellion, you want peace. But peace is not something you can summon, only preserve, and so you smile in portraits. You write soft letters to your sister, calling her my gracious queen. You attend mass when asked, nod at sermons you no longer believe. You do what is required, no more, no less, and still danger follows. You hear your name spoken in taverns and markets. You feel the eyes watching from beneath lowered hoods. Every footstep behind you becomes a question. Who sent them? What do they want? How many more chances will you be given? You become a student of silence. You speak to no one without reason. You learn to write with elegance and ambiguity. You learn to never say exactly what you mean. Your household is small but loyal. You choose them carefully. Blanche Parry, your gentle shadow. Cat Ashley, your tutor, your friend, your mirror of memory. They speak to you in quiet tones. They know not to ask too much. They trust that you see more than you ever say. And then comes Wyatt's rebellion. Another storm, not of your making, and yet your name appears again. The rebels claim they rise for you. They say you will save England from the Spanish prince. You do not know these men. You never asked for their cause. But now their cause is tied to your name, and that is enough. You are summoned once more, this time not to the tower, but to the palace, to Mary's court, where candles burn low and suspicion stains the tapestries. You arrive, cloaked in humility, your eyes downcast, your hands folded. Mary watches you with a face like stone. She does not smile. She asks if you knew of the plot. You say no, softly, calmly, repeatedly. She does not believe you, but she cannot prove it. There are interrogations, there are searches. Your letters are read, your servants questioned, but no guilt is found. You are sent back to the country, not quite in disgrace, not quite in favor. You learn then that sometimes survival means becoming fog, hard to hold, hard to name, present but untouchable. You retreat to your studies, you polish your languages, you read Cicero and Tacitus, and wonder what they would have done in your place. You begin to write your own speeches, never spoken aloud, but written in margins, in dreams. You imagine what you would say to a room full of doubters. You imagine how your voice would sound if it were not always cautious. And one day, you write a phrase you cannot forget. I will have but one mistress, and no master. You fold it away, but it stays in your mind. Not a proclamation yet, just a promise to yourself. The years pass. Mary grows thinner, paler. The court begins to murmur. The Spanish king departs more often than he visits. And still, no child, you wait. You wait as only you can, with stillness, with silence, with patience sharp as flint, and then, one evening, a rider arrives, a letter, a summons. Mary is ill. No one says the words aloud, but you hear them anyway. Prepare. You travel to London under a sky the color of pewter. People line the roads. They do not cheer, but they look. You see something in their eyes that terrifies you more than hatred. Hope, it rests heavy on your shoulders. You are not queen, not yet. But the world begins to lean toward you, and you do not run. Instead, you take a breath, steady, deep, like someone about to step into history. Now let your thoughts drift. Let the fire in the hearth crackle softly behind your mind. Let your heart beat slow with the rhythm of footsteps echoing down an empty corridor. You are Elizabeth. No crown yet weighs your head, but destiny has turned its gaze upon you, and you do not blink. It begins with the sound of hoofbeats on wet stone. You wake early, before the frost has lifted from the window. The letter sits unopened on the table, wax unbroken, but you already know what it contains. Another summons, another test. You fold the letter in silence and begin to dress. Outside, the coach waits. For horses, 2 guards, faces you do not recognize, eyes that do not smile. You ride through mist and memory, through narrow roads and aching fields, where nothing has yet bloomed. The silence is a familiar weight now. You don't flinch from it. The tower rises ahead, just as it did in stories. But it is no story to you. It is the place your mother breathed her last, the place where your name was first whispered with suspicion, the place where the stones remember everything. You do not ask why. They say it is for your safety, that rumors must be quelled, that the rebellion was too close. But you know what this is. It is a cage, a quiet one, with tapestries and food and polite voices, but a cage nonetheless. They call it a stay of inquiry. You call it what it is. A reminder. The room they give you is clean, too clean, as if to erase what came before. You do not sleep your first night there. Instead, you lie still and count the cracks in the ceiling. You listen to the river outside, to the occasional clang of distant armor, the creak of wood expanding in the damp dot. Your body is still, but your mind walks the corridors. Remember walking with Cat Ashley as a child, hand in hand, asking questions about your mother. Cat would pause, look around, then whisper her answers. They never said her name aloud, Anne, but you whispered it anyway, to the wind, to the dark corners of your chamber. Now you say it again, not in fear, but in recognition. Anne Boleyn, the Queen, who lost everything, and you, her daughter, who still survives. In the tower, time passes slowly. The days are filled with nothing. No trials, no questions, no accusers, only waiting. You walk the perimeter of your chamber. You read psalms aloud, your voice a thread in the still air. You keep your back straight, your tone calm, because that is what you must do. You write letters, to Mary, to the council, polite, measured, each word considered, each line a step across thin ice. You deny everything. You reaffirm your loyalty. You offer prayers for the Queen's health, and still no response. You hear whispers through the door. Servants outside, talking in hushed tones. Will she be charged? Does she know? Another Boleyn. The voices trail off. You do not answer them. Instead, you look into the small, warped mirror hanging above the wash basin. You see your mother's eyes, your father's chin, and something else entirely. A woman learning how to disappear without fading. You begin to write verses, soft and short, lines that speak of wind and stone, of waiting, of will. They are not meant for anyone to read. They are simply your breath put into ink. On the 11th day, a letter arrives. From the Queen. It is short, cold. You are to be released. For now, to be sent back to the countryside. Your name still under watch. Your freedom conditional, but the walls of the tower will no longer hold you. As the guards escort you down the long corridor to the outer gate, your steps echo. One of them glances sideways. Not unkindly, he says, "Your Grace, the river is high today." You nod, not because you care about the tide, but because you know the message within it. The river carries everything boders, boats, secrets, but today it carries you away. You step through the traitor's gate not as a prisoner, but as a memory that refuses to be erased. The sun glints faintly on the Thames as you board the barge. Your hands remain still in your lap. Your eyes do not turn back. You leave the tower, but not the lesson. You are no longer a girl in danger. You are a woman in waiting, and you are learning that power is not seized all at once. It is gathered slowly, in silences, in stillness, in the 1,000 moments no one sees. You return to Hatfield with a spine of steel hidden beneath your velvet. The guards salute. The household bows. You smile, gently. But you do not soften, because you have seen the inside of the tower, and you walked back out at night, when the wind whispers against the panes. You hear the echo of footsteps in long stone corridors. You hear your own breathing, steady and quiet. You are Elizabeth. You are still unwed, still watched, still officially nothing, but you are more than ever live. Let the tower fade now, like a dream from which you've awoken. Let the boat drift, downstream into still water. Let your thoughts return to that breath, deep and slow, steady and free. You are no longer a prisoner. You are becoming. You return to Hatfield, not as the girl who left, but as the woman who has seen the edge and not fallen. The walls of the estate are unchanged, timbers worn smooth by time, the halls full of shadows that bend gently in the afternoon sun. But something inside you has shifted. Your steps are quieter now, more measured, your voice softer, but with weight behind each syllable. You carry yourself with the poise of someone who knows what fear tastes like, and who now tastes freedom more carefully. Because of it, the court is still far away, but its eyes are never far from you. Letters come daily, from diplomats, from nobles, from those who say nothing but mean everything. They ask polite questions. How is your health, Lady Elizabeth? Will you return to court soon? Have you considered marriage? But underneath it all, who are you speaking to? What are you planning? Are you waiting for Mary to die? And you answer with grace. Always grace. You send warm responses. You thank them for their concern. You speak of gardens and reading and the Queen's good governance. But you never say more than you must, because waiting is no longer passive. It is an art. In the mornings, you rise with the sun. You walk the dew-damp lawns, wrapped in a simple shawl, hands tucked together like a prayer. No jewels, no silk, only thought. You think about statecraft, about the way alliances bend like reeds in the wind, about Spain, about France, about Mary and her empty cradle. You think about silence, how it is both shield and sword. Kat, Ashley reads with you. She brings you letters, books, news. She knows how to let you breathe and how to remind you, without speaking, that each day you live untouched is a victory. Sometimes, in the evenings, you play music, a lute in your lap, fingers moving gently over the strings. The songs are soft, melancholy. They do not seek to impress, only to survive. You hum to yourself, and no one interrupts. Because those who serve you now understand, you are not here to dazzle, you are here to endure. Word spreads quietly. The queen is unwell, her cheeks pale, her belly never swells. The foreign husband has returned to Spain again, and the people, they begin to turn their faces toward Hatfield. Peasants speak your name in whispers, but their eyes light up. Merchants send small gifts, a ribbon, a carved box, a letter signed by 50 villagers, praying for your well-being, and you read every one, not out of vanity, but out of responsibility. You begin to write more, to practice your signature in ways that feel like prophecy, to write speeches you may never deliver but might. You ask questions of your advisors. What is the cost of bread in Norfolk? Who governs Calais now? Is the harvest strong this year? They are simple questions, but the answers, you know, are anything but. You study maps, you draw lines between counties, between loyalties, between friends and ghosts. You begin to feel something you do not yet name. Not ambition, no, but gravity, as if the world is slowly tilting and you are its anchor. One day a messenger arrives. He says nothing at first, only bows and hands you a sealed letter. You open it slowly. The wax is the Queen's. The words are few, a request. Come to London. Soon there is no tone, no warmth, but you know what it means. Mary is fading. No one says it aloud, but it moves through the air like the smell of winter, subtle, sharp, inevitable. You do not rush. You take 2 days to prepare. You choose your carriage carefully. You dress simply. A dark gown, no embroidery, a cross of silver, plain and unpolished. When you arrive in London, the city does not cheer, but it quiets. The bells do not toll, but their silence says enough. You are led to a private chamber, far from the Queen's bedchamber. No audience, no conversation, only a waiting chair by the fire. There you sit, for hours, hands folded, eyes lowered, ears open. No one dares approach, and yet everyone watches. You think of your father, of your mother, of how the crown has always moved through blood, but never gently. When night falls, you are led to a room and told to rest. You do not sleep. Instead, you sit by the window, looking over the city. The lights are soft. The river below you is dark and quiet, and you feel the shape of what's coming. Not joy, not fear, something else. The shape of a moment larger than you, but also made for you. In the morning, a knock, the door opens. One of Mary's advisors, eyes red-rimmed, face composed. "My Lady Elizabeth," he says, "the Queen has passed." Silence then. With deliberate care, he kneels and says the words you will never forget. "God save the Queen." You do not speak, not yet. You simply breathe, because now, each breath you take belongs not only to you but to a kingdom. Let the scene settle now. Let the fire grow low, the room darken with the calm of 100 hushed voices. Let your breath fall into rhythm with the quiet rise of history. You are Elizabeth. The crown is not yet on your head, but it is in the air around you, and you are ready. The morning light is grey and trembling when the words finally become real. You are queen, not crowned, not robed, but named, declared. The realm now rests upon your breath, and yet there is no music, no roar of joy, no gold-lined throne awaiting your footsteps. There is only stillness, a slow wind through the narrow halls, the soft creak of boots on stone, the hush of servants bowing more deeply than before. You do not smile, you nod, you whisper, "Thanks." You move through the palace like someone stepping through the skin of a dream. Mary is gone, and with her, the last monarch who ruled as a woman, by force, by fear, by fire. You will rule as one, too, but not by her way. Yours will be different. The preparations begin at once. Meetings, signatures, proclamations. Parliament must be called. Nobles gathered, robes sewn, bishops consulted, and yet, through it all, you remain. Still as ink, drying, still as a lake before a storm. In private, you whisper a prayer, not to saints, nor relics, nor Rome, but to yourself, that you will not be swallowed by the weight, that you will not lose yourself to the shape of the crown. They say a queen must be married. They say a queen must bear heirs. You say, I will consider. All counsel, but inside, you have already made your choice. There will be no master. You walk the long corridors of Whitehall, now, not as a guest or a shadow, but as the sovereign, and still, you remember Hatfield, and the Tower, and your mother's name. You do not forget the price of being too loud, too quick, too sure. You watch, you listen. Your first council meets in silence, waiting for you to speak. You wear a gown of deep green, unadorned. Only your signet ring catches the firelight. You sit. You fold your hands. And then, in the quiet voice they once feared to question, you say, "This is the Lord's doing, and it is marvelous in our eyes." It is not just a verse, it is a claim, a throne spoken into being with reverence, not thunder. The day of your coronation approaches. They say it must be magnificent. They say it must soothe both the Catholic heart and the Protestant soul. You nod, let it be what they need. But for you, it is something else. A veil lifting, a name solidifying. You do not sleep the night before. You pace slowly. You reread old verses. You touch the fabric of the dress chosen for the procession, white satin, heavy and luminous. You stare at the crown waiting on its velvet cushion. It looks smaller than you imagined, yet heavier. On the morning of your coronation, London wakes with a chill, but the streets fill anyway. Men in wool cloaks, women in threadbare shawls, children lifted onto shoulders. They line the procession route, craning their necks for a glimpse of you. You ride a white horse, gloved hands steady on. The reins, your red hair glows beneath a fine gold net. Your gaze never falters. The people cheer not wildly, not with abandon, but with something more enduring. Relief, hope, they chant your name. Not like a hymn, but like a truth finally returned to them. Elizabeth, long live the Queen. In Westminster Abbey, the air smells of candle wax and incense. You walk the length of the nave alone. The crown is waiting. The Archbishop places holy oil upon your forehead, your breast, your hands. He speaks of Solomon, of wisdom, of service. And when the crown finally rests upon your head, not as a dream, not as a threat, but as a fact, that as a fact you do not feel consumed, you feel whole. The cheers that follow are thunderous. The choir erupts in song. The nobles kneel. The world tilts, and you close your eyes for a moment, not in fear, not in fatigue, but in memory of the girl in the tower, the child declared illegitimate, the woman who waited. You are all of them, and none of them you are. Elizabeth Regina. That night, there is feasting, dancing, toasts. The court glitters like 1,000 stars tossed across stone. But you retreat early. You remove the crown with your own hands. You sit by the fire, bareheaded and alone. And in that soft solitude, you smile, not for the court, not for the kingdom, but for yourself, because you know that this is only the beginning. The crown may be yours, but so too is the burden. Let the fire crackle gently now. Let the echoes of trumpets soften into wind. Let the scent of wax and velvet drift like fog across your thoughts. You are Elizabeth, no longer waiting, no longer hidden. You are queen, and the night has only just begun. The crown may glitter, but it does not warm. You wear it now not just in ceremony, but in every breath. Each morning you wake as Elizabeth the Queen. Each night you close your eyes beneath a weight that no pillow can soften. The court is loud. Now, so many voices, so many men with opinions. They speak of suitors, alliances, heirs. They bring you portraits of foreign princes, each more elaborately dressed than the last. You look, you nod, you ask polite questions, but inside you are already saying no. No to marriage, no to surrender. You remember what happened to your mother when she pleased a king. You remember what it means to be chosen, then discarded, and so you choose yourself. The court doesn't understand. They whisper, they speculate, they call it pride, vanity, stubbornness. Let them. You are not here to explain yourself. You are here to reign, and reign you do. The kingdom is divided. Protestants and Catholics eye each other with suspicion. Old nobles cling to the past. Foreign powers test your borders. You do not falter. You call your advisors. You listen. You ask questions that make them blink. You quote law, scripture, and Tacitus. You remind them that you are not a figurehead. You are the crown, and yet you do not rule with fire. Not like Mary, you rule with patience. You restore the Church of England not with executions, but with policy. You tread a line so thin, even your own bishops cannot see where your loyalties lie. You do not need them to. You are loyal only to England, to her fields and her rivers, to her people who cheer your name and hang your portrait above their hearths. You visit towns not for spectacle, but to see, to feel the breath of your kingdom beneath your feet, to hear how bread is priced, how sermons are preached, how children are named, and still the letters come from kings, emperors, dukes. Marriage offers some earnest, some strategic. You answer them all with gracious diplomacy, but your signature always curls with quiet defiance. You are Gloriana now, though the name has not yet been spoken. You rise early. You read dispatches. You practice speeches in the mirror. In the quiet, you whisper truths to yourself no one else will ever hear. My body is not a treaty. My name is not a dowry. My crown is not for sale. At court, you move like wind in a garden of knives. You smile. You flatter. You dance when you must. But you never let your guard slip. Even among friends, you listen more than you speak. Even among suitors, you calculate more than you feel. You are never cruel, but you are never careless. And then, one day, the threats become more than murmurs. Plots rise, letters, intercepted. Invisibly inked words promising your death, your overthrow, your silence. You read them in the privacy of your chamber. Your eyes do not widen. Your hands do not shake. You are used to danger by now. You were raised inside it. Your spymaster Walsingham becomes your second shadow. He uncovers names, maps, secrets, tightens the net. Still, you do not rule through fear. You rule through certainty. Even when the Pope declares you excommunicated. Even when foreign assassins land on English soil. Even when your cousin Mary, Queen of Scots, arrives at your gates. A rival, a symbol. A question you must one day answer. You do not lose your composure. You write letters. You speak with firmness and grace. And in every move, every decree, you leave just enough mystery to make your enemies pause, because they cannot predict you, and that is your greatest armor. Your people begin to understand you not fully, but enough they see your strength. They see your restraint. They sing ballads in taverns. They wear your image as a brooch. They name their daughters for you. You are becoming something larger than life. A queen, not married, not ruled, not broken. You are becoming legend. But in the stillness of your bedchamber, you are also tired. The candle burns lower now. The embers crackle with the soft sigh of wood turning to ash. You sit at your writing desk, composing a letter not meant for anyone, only for yourself. You write, too. Be still is not to be weak. To be alone is not to be unloved. To be queen is to remember the silence before the crown. You fold the paper. You do not seal it. You place it under your pillow. A secret between you and the night. Let the murmurs of court fade now. Let the maps be rolled and the scrolls tied with ribbon. Let the breath of the kingdom rest gently on your shoulders. You are Elizabeth, unwed, unyielding. You are not just ruling, you are rewriting what it means to rule. The word begins as a whisper. Gloriana, not spoken by you, but by poets, painters, dreamers who see in your pale hands and fiery hair not just a monarch, but a symbol, a living emblem of England's will. They gild your name in verse they cast. You in allegory and pageant. You ride at the head of processions like a goddess stepped down from marble. And yet you are still very much alive, still flesh beneath silk, still breath behind the crown. But the people do not see the breath. They see the image, and you allow it. Because myth protects more fiercely than soldiers, because image, once sharpened, can pierce through doubt. They crown you again, not with gold this time, but with ideas, with legends sung in taverns and etched in stained glass. You do not resist it. You become Gloriana, the Virgin Queen, the wise Solomon reborn, the bride of England. And when war comes, you wear that image like armor. Spain threatens, the greatest empire in the world prepares to crush your island. Ships are built, fleets assembled. The Spanish Armada swells the horizon, blackening the seas. Your court panics. Your advisors press their hands to maps and pray with their eyes open. And you ride to Tilbury. You mount a white horse, armor glinting faintly at your shoulders, a plume rising like flame from your helm. Before your troops, you speak, I know I have the body of a weak and feeble woman, but I have the heart and stomach of a king and a king of England too. Your voice does not tremble, your gaze does not flinch, and they believe you, because you believe you. The Armada meets storm and resistance. Your ships, smaller and swifter, strike like wolves in fog. The sea, ever faithful to England, lashes against the invaders. Fireships light the channel, sails burn, and the Armada scats. It is not just a battle won, it is a legend written on water. The people rejoice, bells ring. Bells ring, prayers are said in chapels and fields alike, and you, their queen, become something untouchable. You are not just victorious, you are destiny. Paintings follow your hand resting on a globe, your gaze toward eternity. You wear pearls like armor, your dress a tapestry of power. You never speak of fear. You do not describe the sleepless nights, the long debates behind doors, the cost in coin and blood. You let them believe it was always certain, that you stood alone on the shore and willed the storm to break, because that is the power of myth, and you have learned how to wield it at court. Your influence deepens, writers flourish under your gaze. Spies whisper your will into foreign courts. Your signature reshapes laws and lifts cities. Men you once danced with grow old. Some fall out of favor. Some rise too far, too fast, like the Earl of Essex, who fawns and flatters and then dares. Too much, but for now there is peace. The land breathes easier. The harvests return. Children born in this time will never remember a world without your face above the hearth. And you walk alone in your private garden. You pick herbs with bare hands. You hum low tunes your mother once taught you. You breathe in the scent of lavender and mint, and wonder how it is that you are still here, that no husband has come to claim your throne, that no assassin's dagger has found you, that the sea and sky alike have answered your call. You think of your father, his hunger for sons, his swift cruelty. You think of your mother, the way her name was almost lost, and you think of the girl. You were unseen, unheard, learning in the shadows, and now, the world kneels when you enter a room, not because you demanded it, but because you became it. Let the banners fall still in the wind. Let the last sounds of celebration quiet into sleep. You are Elizabeth, not just queen, not just Gloriana, but the heartbeat of a kingdom that no longer doubts your place. You have risen, not as a wife, nor a mother, but as something stranger and stronger. Let the lull of the ocean return. Let your breath mimic the tide, steady and deep. You have written your name in the waves, and the world will not forget it. Time passes, and with it, something else begins to slip. Not power, not yet, but time itself. You notice it first in the mirror, a wrinkle at the corner of your mouth, a deepening shadow beneath one eye, the red in your hair fading into something more like flame turned to ember. You do not flinch. You paint your face as you always have. The white powder smooths the years. The rouge lifts your cheeks. The pearls you wear sparkle just as they did when you were 30. But something inside you knows you are no longer the woman they remember. You are the version they need. The court does not speak of your age. They dare not. You are still the queen, still Gloriana, still sharp of mind and quicker with wit than most half your age. But the eyes of courtiers begin to linger longer, not with admiration but calculation. They wonder who will rise next, who you favor, who you still trust. You trust fewer now. Many have died. Some faded into country estates. Some betrayed you with letters written in haste and sealed with desperation. You forgive little because you remember everything. You keep your circle small. Walsingham is gone. Cecil grows older. Only a few familiar voices remain, whispers in corridors, companions in silence. Your steps slow, but your presence never does. You appear when least expected at council meetings, in churches, during private feasts, and always dressed like the legend they believe in, silk and jewels, fan in hand, eyes watching everything. They call it vanity, but it is protection, because if they see your age, they will start to measure the end, and you are not yet ready for endings. You refuse to name a successor. Let them wait as you once waited. Let them wonder, because if they see the end too clearly, they will begin to move toward it. So you rule with riddles, with poetry, with long silences that speak more than decrees. You attend plays. You nod thoughtfully at Shakespeare's words, though he writes truths beneath his praise. You understand subtext better than any dramatist, because you, too, are a playwright, and the court is your stage. You see yourself through others' eyes now. The portraits grow more flattering, the colors brighter, the skin smoother. Your painters capture not the woman, but the idea, and that idea must not age. Not yet, because as long as Gloriana lives, England believes. But in the long hours of night, when the candles flicker low, you let the mask slip just a little. You sit alone in your chamber. No attendants, no mirrors, no fans. You remove your jewels with slow fingers. You wipe the paint from your cheeks. You trace the lines in your skin like rivers earned, not erased. You remember names: Robert Dudley, Francis Walsingham, William, Cecil, each a piece of you, each now gone. You do not cry, but you feel the weight of memory like fabric soaked in time. You walk the corridors barefoot. The stone is cold beneath your feet. Your breath echoes softly against tapestries that show a younger you. You touch the threads. You say nothing. You think of all the times you danced, all the hands you never held, all the nights you chose silence over comfort. You wonder, quietly, what a child might have looked like with your eyes, and then you push the thought away, because regrets are luxuries for those who do not wear crowns, and you still wear yours. You write by candlelight, your hand a little slower, but your mind no less sharp. A letter to the French ambassador, a note to the master of the revels, a draft of a speech you may never give, and when you finally sleep, it is beneath layers of silk and stories, beneath dreams you do not speak aloud. You are Elizabeth. You have outlasted kings, outmaneuvered empires, redefined what a queen can be. Let the night rest quietly on your shoulders. Let the mirrors darken, the fans close. You are still watching, still shaping the air around you. The mask may slip, but it never shatters, because the legend is now the truth. The throne is no longer bright. It still stands, polished and draped in royal velvet. Your crown still rests upon its carved arm. But now, when you approach it, you feel the hush of absence around it. Not silence, but absence. You have ruled for decades, outlived rivals, outlasted storms. But now the winds have changed again. Not rebellion, not war, just time. It takes more from you now than enemies ever could. The faces around you are unfamiliar. New nobles with new ambitions, new languages of power, where glances carry more than words. The court still flatters. They still bow, still sing your praises in verses embroidered onto gifts. But their eyes flick to the future. They begin to ask quietly, cautiously, what comes next? You never answer. You rise earlier now, because sleep no longer clings. Your dreams are short, scattered like the petals of a faded rose. When you do sleep, it is often in the chair beside your hearth, your head tilted gently, a shawl over your knees. You do not like beds anymore. Too much stillness in them, too much space where someone should be. Robert Dudley is gone. You do not speak his name aloud, but every corner of the palace reminds you. The dance halls, the garden paths, the corridors where your laughter once echoed in twos. He was your friend, your favorite yaw. Almost they called him ambitious. They whispered about scandal, but you knew his voice before the crown. And after he died, the court grew colder. You do not fill his place. You do not replace anyone, because everyone is irreplaceable in their own small way, and everyone, it seems, is gone. You begin to see ghosts in mirrors, not frightening ones, just familiar. Cat Ashley's voice in the back of your mind. Walsingham's cold logic, Cecil's careful wisdom. The dead surround you, not with fear, but with the gentle rustle of memory. You walk through your halls and speak to no one. And yet, you are never alone. Your courtiers still gather, still dress in colors meant to catch your eye, but they no longer matter in the same way. You do not need to be admired. You only need to be remembered, and they will remember. You still attend council, you still sign decrees. Your mind remains quick, even as your body begins to tremble in the mornings. You write with a steadier hand than many expect. But you write less now, because you've already said the most important things. The Earl of Essex tries your patience. He enters your life like lightning bright, loud, impossible to ignore. He wins battles, then craves more. He flatters you, then defies you. He falls from favor and believes he can rise again through charm. But charm cannot replace loyalty, and when he rebels, truly rebels, you do what you must. You sign the warrant, and when the axe falls, you feel it in your chest, as though some part of your own heart has been struck. The court watches you. Afterward, you do not cry, but you wear black for longer than they expect. They whisper again. They always whisper, but no one dares ask what it cost you. You retreat farther after that. You no longer walk the palace freely. You stay in your private rooms. You order the windows covered on rainy days. You eat less, speak less. Your dogs rest beside your feet, their warmth more comforting than words. You ask your ladies to sing for you soft songs in old languages. Sometimes they hesitate before beginning, unsure if you are listening. You always are. One night, you order every mirror removed. They obeyed, no questions, because they know the image has become too brittle, too sacred to witness fade. You dress simply now, gowns of white or black. No more extravagant collars, no more silken gloves. You are not hiding anymore, only preparing. You begin to speak more to the walls than to the courtiers. You call out names that no one in the room recognizes, and when they ask if you are well, you smile. You tell them, I am surrounded, and it is true, not by enemies, but by memories. The throne still waits in the great hall, but you no longer sit upon it. You pass by it, slowly, sometimes resting a hand on its edge, and in that brief moment, you remember it all. The tower, the letters, the fire, the sea, the crown. Let the courtiers whisper, let them dress in gold. You are beyond performance now. You are the quiet center of the realm. You are the breath of England in winter. Let your bones rest gently. Let the memories rise and settle like leaves in a soft wind. You are Elizabeth, And though everyone leaves, you remain. The Tudor line is ending. You do not speak it aloud, but you feel it like a slow tide, drawing back from the shore, leaving footprints that no wave will ever wash away. You are the last. There will be no child to carry your name, no heir to mirror your gaze or speak with your voice. The blood of Henry, of all the crowned ghosts before you, will stop with you. You are not afraid, you are aware. The court continues around you, but now it feels like watching a play from behind the curtain. You hear the applause. You sense the actors. But the performance is no longer yours to lead. You sleep less. You eat only what is brought in silence, small pieces of fruit, broth in cups that cool before you finish. You no longer sit at tables with others. The noise is too much. Instead, you sit on cushions by the hearth, wrapped in shawls even when the sun is high. You rest your hands in your lap, palms open, as if waiting for something you can no longer name. They ask you to go to bed. You refuse, each day, each night. You say nothing in return. Only close your eyes and shake your head, because the bed feels too final, too still. You prefer the warmth of the fire and the shape of the room you have come to know like skin. Sometimes when the fire crackles low, you speak, not to your ladies, not to the courtiers who hover, but to the air, to the past. You say names, whispers, drifting up like smoke. Cat, Robert, Anne, Edward, Mary. You do not explain, because they were yours. And now they come back to you in dreams you do not share. Your counselors urge you, name a successor, but you give no answer. Not out of pride, not out of cruelty, but because naming the end is another kind of dying. You let them wonder, you let them prepare, and privately you make peace with the truth. The line will pass, the name will end, but the story will remain. Outside your chamber, the courtiers argued. James of Scotland waits with bated breath. Parliament murmurs, the nobles twist their hands, but you do not. You rest, not in surrender, but in stillness. There are moments now when the world fades, when voices become echoes, when light becomes water, when time no longer moves forward, but circles gently around you. You feel the years return, not one by one, but all at once. You are again the girl in the tower, the scholar at Hatfield, the queen in armor, the woman in white dancing beneath torchlight.ur. All of them, all at once, and also none. You are simply Elizabeth, and you are tired. You hold a ring in your hand now, the one you've worn for decades. Inside a portrait of your mother, still smiling, still doomed, still part of you. You press the ring to your lips. You whisper to her, not in sorrow, but in gratitude, because despite everything, you survived, and, more than that, you reigned. One evening, the light through the window turns gold. You close your eyes, you feel the warmth on your cheeks, and for a moment, you are standing in the garden again, picking mint. The world quiet and whole. The ladies around you do not speak. They hold their breath, because something in the air has changed. You are not gone, not yet, but something inside you has begun to drift, like a boat loosed from its moorings. You let it go, not in fear, not in resistance, just release. Let the fire dim, let the windows frost, let the room grow still, as if the kingdom itself holds its breath. You are Elizabeth, the last Tudor, the endling, but endings are not erasure. They are memory, folded gently into the fabric of time. and you have been woven into it completely. The days grow thinner, like parchment left in the sun. The wind outside your window no longer stirs your curtains. The court continues to hum beyond the doors, but it feels as though the palace itself is stepping softly now, afraid to wake you, or to find you already dreaming. You do not speak much anymore. Your voice has become a ripple, only rising now and then, like a half-forgotten lullaby. You rest upon your cushions, never once taking to bed. They bring you thicker robes, warmed stones, lavender oil. You do not notice. You are elsewhere, not far, just deeper. Sometimes your eyes open and find the fire. Its light dances across your face. Your lips move without sound, as if reciting old verses. You mouth names: Anne, Hatfield, England. Your ladies-in-waiting whisper to one another in corners. They wonder what you see, what you remember, what you wait for. But you are not waiting. You are remembering in full color. You are once again walking beneath the garden arches, your younger hand brushing rosemary and rose hips. You are again seated at a table with your tutors, challenging them with riddles in Latin. You are at the coronation, your fingers cold around the scepter, your voice steady as the crown is lowered. You are in Tilbury, your armor stiff, your words stronger than steel. You are not fading. You are folding gracefully, like a letter closed with care. Outside your room, the court prepares. James of Scotland waits. He knows the moment is close. The air hangs heavy with inheritance. But you do not concern yourself with succession. That part of the world is already beyond your reach, already unwinding into a new chapter. You gave it your years, you gave it your name, you gave it everything, and now you keep only the smallest thing. You're quiet at night. They leave a single candle burning near your chair. You do not sleep, but you no longer wake. Your eyes remain open, unfocused, as if you are seeing something just beyond the walls. You murmur softly, "I see them." No one asks who, because they know the long line, the forgotten names, the ones who walked before, and the ones you carried within you all these years. You begin to speak to shadows, not out of madness, but because they are real to you now. Cat, brushing your hair. Robert, smiling just beyond the doorway. Your mother, finally whole, finally. Close. The pain is gone. Not because your body has healed, but because you no longer feel the need to carry it. The ache of solitude, the burden of sovereignty, the questions of legacy, you have set them all down. Your final words are not declarations, not laws, not scripture, only a sigh, a single word, remember, and then stillness, the kind that doesn't ask for attention, the kind that isn't afraid, the kind that feels like an exhale. The ladies wait in silence. The fire dims, the candle flutters, the morning creeps quietly over the windowsill, and you are still there, but already gone. Not in sorrow, in peace. Let the silence stretch now. Let the last thread unspool. Let the night cradle you one last time. You are Elizabeth, not just queen, not just myth, but memory, wrapped in light. A gentle word before we go on. The dream you have walked in wearing Elizabeth's heart, feeling her breath must now fold itself closed. From this moment, the tale settles into third person, so that you, restful listener, may watch the Queen's last twilight from a safe, drifting distance. Night clings to the palace like velvet, holding every corridor in slow, hushed suspense. Courtiers move with the care of candle flames, their slippers whispering across rush-strewn floors, as though even sound might disturb the turning of an age. Since early winter, the Queen has refused her bed, arranging instead a low nest of silk cushions beside the hearth in her privy chamber. There she sits, head bent, hands loosely clasped, watching embers collapse into soft, glowing rubble. No command rings from her lips now. Only thin breaths cloud the chill air before dissolving into silence. Yet her presence, though fragile, still governs every nervous heartbeat around her. Those who waited on Elizabeth in her brightest years know the pattern of her gaze tonight. It is the look she once wore while measuring threats across a council table or scanning storm-dark sea for Spanish masts, except that now the danger lies within, a stubborn heart fluttering weakly behind jeweled stays, a body frayed by decades of sleepless guardianship. Physicians trot in and out, offering broth, posets, Latin diagnoses, but she waves them away with a faint, precise motion as if dismissing an argument long ago proven false. Outside, early March rain taps on the lattice. Inside, time proceeds by candle stubs. Each guttering wick marks another inch of Tudor daylight shrinking into history. Lady Scrope, pacing in worried orbits, dares at last to kneel beside her sovereign. With voice as soft as falling ash, she entreats the Queen to lie upon a proper bed to spare her strength. Elizabeth's eyelids lift. Their amber clarity, though ringed with shadow, still carries the old, exacting light. Must a queen yield to down and feathers at the final? She murmurs, "These stones have served me longer than any pillow." Lady Scrope backs away, ashamed of her own well-mended comfort. The Privy Council gathers in an adjoining chamber, parchment shivering in clammy fingers. Who will succeed? James of Scotland waits just beyond the political horizon, a hawk poised. Above prey not yet diverted, they need the Queen's word. But Elizabeth has rarely surrendered decisions easily. Now, in her last hours, certainties prove even harder to wrest from her. She drifts into reverie, half seeing people only she can. "Name, Robert, why so silent?" she whispers once, nodding at an empty corner. Another time, her lips form Sweet Robin, echoing love and loss fused into a single phantom. Toward midnight, the fire collapses into blue-white dust. A maid moves to stoke it, yet the Queen lifts one pale hand. "No more," she tells them. "Let the embers rest." She draws her furred mantle closer, though not from cold. Rather, she seems to gather memory itself, robes of victory, veils of sorrow around shoulders, now too slight to bear such weight. In her lap she cradles the familiar ring with its hidden portrait of Anne Boleyn. Thumb tracing its gold rim, she offers a faint, secret smile, as if mother and daughter finally share the same quiet room. Thus seated, Elizabeth closes her eyes. Lids flicker while thoughts pass like distant flares. It is said a lifetime's worth may pour through the mind in final moments. And perhaps that is true. There is Tilbury, sunlight striking polished armor. There is the tower's echoing staircase, footsteps of childhood fear. There is ink drying on a parchment of tolerance, the careful balancing of a realm's divided soul. Yet one image lingers, longest a simple sunrise over Hatfield's meadows. Dew bright on grass where a young girl once recited Latin verbs to robins. The circle of her story completes itself, turning not on crowns or treaties, but on the stubborn grace of survival just before dawn. Archbishop Whitgift, summoned by frantic messengers, kneels beside her cushions. He begins the customary prayers, for the departing soul. Elizabeth's lips shaped the words in silence, her breath shallow but steady, riding the well-memorized cadences of the book she once translated for private comfort. When the final Amen hovers, Whitgift leans close and quietly asks the question all England strains to hear. Whom does Her Majesty name to follow? A long pause stretches. At last her eyelids flicker open, pupils fix on a point beyond human reach. A whisper escapes. Let my kingdom know peace, not a name, but enough. The council interprets, anxieties settling on James as the surest harbour. Minutes slide into one another. The candle flames shrink, drawing their golden skirts. A single tear breaks from the corner of Elizabeth's eye, tracing a thin gleam over powdered cheek. It is not sorrow, more a final acknowledgement that flesh must loosen its grip. Her shoulders release the breath that has ruled a hemisphere of hope and fear. One, then another, then none. Lady Scrope touches a wrist, grown silent, then folds the Queen's fingers over the ring. She rises, signals to the council through the half-open door. No wail resounds, no clamorous bells. Instead, a resonance like snowfall settles, the hush of an age concluding. Dawn light slips across floorboards, reaches the small still figure, and turns her white gown the color of new sun on frost. Outside, ravens take wing from palace roofs, black silhouettes against pearl sky. London is waking, unaware that within these walls the monarchy has crossed from living breath into legend. Soon the word will gallop along roads, sail the Thames, echo beneath cathedral vaults. Elizabeth is dead, but in this moment only a quiet handful bear witness, their heads bowed not merely to a sovereign, but to the last heartbeat of Tudor England. They do not hurry. They close shutters, draw drapes, and let the first day of a new reign begin with reverence for the one just ended. For even in death, Elizabeth maintains her own procession, silent, measured, exact. She has gone where no counsel can follow, where plots lose their teeth, where paint and pearls are needless. Yet the shadows she cast remain engraved upon every law, every harbour, every heart taught to dream of a queen who would not yield. The Virgin Queen's passing belongs now to winter memory and April rumour, to poets who will dress her in metaphor, and to sleepers like you who carry her echo. Into calm slumber rest, then, knowing she rests, history keeps its promise. Morning breaks, pale and unhurried, over the low rooftops of Whitehall. News of the Queen's death moves first like a rumour born on mist, then quickens into certainty as church bells sound across the city. Their notes are muted at dawn. One toll, one pause. One tolls tolder than the jubilant peals that once greeted her victories. Londoners lift their heads from pillows and prayer stools, understanding without explanation. A reign longer than memory has ended. Throughout the day, the sound multiplies. Each parish bell answers the next, building a slow river of bronze lament that flows south to the wharves and north to the muddy fields beyond the walls. Children clutch hands that guide them home. Even the river traffic slows, barges drifting, with half-furled sails, as if the Thames itself recalls the young queen gliding to her coronation. Banners reflecting on its surface like bright silk. Inside the palace, the council works behind shuttered windows, quills scraping parchment with the urgency of succession. Deeds are signed, seals pressed, riders dispatched toward the Scottish border. Yet none of it disturbs the hush that lingers over the privy chamber, where Elizabeth's body lies, covered at first by a simple linen sheet, then swathed in white. velvet pearls pinned along the hem like quiet constellations, for tall candles stand at the corners, their flames bending but unextinguished in the dim air. Lady Scrope and Lady Southwell keep vigil, reading psalms in turns. Sometimes their voices falter, not from grief alone, but from the strange awareness that every syllable is sliding into history the instant it leaves their lips. They remember how Elizabeth loved the cadences of Scripture, how she would test translations against her own ear until the music felt exact. Now the verses fall back into the silence that was once her audition room. No corrections, no soft laugh of satisfaction, just the settling of dust upon polished oak. By mid-morning, word reaches country villages: Queen Elizabeth is dead. Long live King James. In taverns men raise cups in cautious salute to the promised peaceful union of crowns. Along hedgerows women pause their pruning to listen for details. Was it sudden? Was she in pain? Did she speak at the last? Answers vary and grow embroidered by kindness. Some say she smiled, others that she named every subject as her child. What remains consistent is the gentleness with which the tale is told, as though harsh news might bruise if spoken too loudly. Soon black cloth drapes shop fronts in Cheapside. Apprentices climb ladders to remove New Year garlands that still hang, faded but incongruous against morning. The theatres close their doors. Even the bear baiting pit stands empty, its ring of stakes casting thin shadows on abandoned sand. In the hush, poets sharpen quills to carve elegies that will ripple beyond their lifetimes. They call her Deborah, they call her Astrea, they call her a phoenix whose ashes will seed a golden age. Hyperbole feels insufficient, yet there is nothing else to match the moment. At Greenwich, the great shipyards lower yacht-arms, recalling the voice of a sovereign who once dared them to build a navy fit to wrestle empires. Mariners remember the Armada year, the beacon fires on cliff tops, the sudden squalls, the taste of gunpowder raining from midnight skies. They picture her standing in armor, small against a forest of pikes, yet somehow containing the horizon within a single steady gaze. The thought steadies them still. South of London, orchards stir with the first hints of blossom. Old men walking the rows pause to lean on staffs, recounting how a younger Elizabeth toured their harvests, praising cider sweet enough to tempt saints. They speak of her laugh bright, startling, never quite expected from a monarch so feared by foreign courts. When memories outnumber words, they simply point to a branch heavy with promise and nod, as though fruit itself is argument that her reign was good. Preparations for the funeral begin. The College of Arms designs a great hearse of timber and waxed cloth. Carpenters measure beams, embroiderers lay out spools of black and clothed gold. It will take weeks, but careful ceremony is familiar to England. Now this land that once braced under tyrannous haste has learned patience from its long-lived queen. Meanwhile, the body is carried at dusk to Whitehall's Chapel Royal. Torches line the route, their flames muffled behind tinted horn, so the night glows wind-dark rather than bright. People kneel as the cortege passes, not in terror but instinctive reverence. Some press fingers to lips in silent benediction. In those bowed heads one can read gratitude for the decades without civil war, without foreign boots on English soil. Stability is an invisible heirloom, but everyone feels its weight when the carrier bears it away. In the chapel, chanting voices rise, while a pall of fragrant smoke drifts across carved rafters. Above the coffin hangs the Queen's banner red. Dragon, golden harp, lions debating their own splendor. Yet it is the small wooden effigy, sculpted in her likeness and dressed in robes of state, that draws every eye, Painted lips rest in a half-smile, as if advising, "Rule your grief as I ruled you firmly." But with grace, day after day, mourners file through, lords in sable mantles, maids in borrowed kerchiefs, sailors smelling of tar, poets with inked thumbs, each bows, curtsies, whispers, or simply stares. Children press cheeks against cool tiles, trying to glimpse the sleeping face of England. Guards allow it, recognizing that farewell is a rite, when the time comes to bear her to Westminster. The hearse moves like a floating midnight garden, black velvet sewn with silver stars, pulled by horses whose hooves strike the cobbles like soft drums. Above, trumpeters blow a slow lament that drifts into fog. Some say the notes echo down the Thames, stirring her great ships at anchor. Others claim the sound is absorbed by clouds, carried north to greet the new king. In Westminster Abbey, she lies beneath the soaring ribs of stone that held her coronation day. Choir boys whose grandfathers sang Te Deum now chant Requiem Aeternam. The circle closes with aching symmetry. The same incense, the same floor worn by decades of her own footsteps. The same archers witnessing the fragile pageant of mortal rule. Bishops speak of Solomon's wisdom, of Judith's courage, of the wise virgin whose lamp never failed. History corrects theology, yet no one minds. This is theatre of completion, staged for the soul. When the stone lid finally seals the vault, a hush rolls down the nave like a wave retreating. Then the heralds step forward, break their white staves of office, and cast the fragments into the grave. It is done. Authority returns to earth even as memory takes flight, and memory does fly. Within months, masks portray her as Astrea ascending among constellation queens. Within years, scholars publish the Fairy Queen, fixing Gloriana in shimmering verse. Within decades, colonists name a distant wilderness Virginia, praying her unwed virtue might bless their venture. In each act, she stretches beyond flesh, achieving something the living Elizabeth never sought yet unwittingly earned, ubiquity. So the echo widens. It slides through centuries, through the click of printing presses, the crackle of radio, the hum of electric screens. It survives plague, years and civil war, restoration and empire, suffrage and world conflagration. People forget most details, parliaments, treaties, suitors, but the silhouette endures. A woman who would not yield crown nor heart, who made compromise a shield and her solitude a throne. And if on some sleepless night a listener lies in darkness, breath slowing to match the hush of distant bells, perhaps that echo arrives again, the faint grit of her voice at Tilbury, the rustle of page turning in candlelight, the simple sigh remember. It comes featherlight, not to wake but to soothe, reminding each dreamer that endurance can be gentle, that sovereignty begins within, and that even endings may cradle a quiet, luminous beginning. So rest. Elizabeth rests. The realm she left has changed masters, but not lost its pulse. Outside your window, wherever that may be, the same moon that silvered her last breath rises calm and generous, urging eyes to close. Let it glow over you now, carrying the echo of a queen who, having ruled storms, became at last a lullaby of peace. Good night.